College has obviously changed in the era of COVID-19. We're talking about things like from canceled testing to also new application changes.
And speaking to us live from Houston is college expert Neha Gupta, founder of College Shortcuts. Good morning. Thank you so much for talking with us. We really appreciate it.
Glad to be back.
All right, let's talk about your college tips for admissions. Now that the SATs, the AP testing, all of that's changed. And, you know, my daughter's, she's a 10th grader, so she's not doing that yet, but a lot of her friends are a little bit like freaked out, right? So what does this mean?
Absolutely. I mean, this is going to be one of the most difficult year at admissions, not just for colleges, but also for students. With the fact that GPAs may be different due to the fact that schools have been canceled, SAT and ACTs have been postponed. Now what that means for students is to focus in on their essays and resume. We also saw that colleges weren't visited as much in March due to COVID-19. And so getting outside help to figure out what is the right fit is going to matter in this year's admissions.
So if there's a parent at home right now and they're talking with their child and they say, hey, should we study for the SAT? Should they still be doing that?
Well, there are test dates available in August. College Board has also announced they're going to look at online options. So in this time when students do have a lot of time, we do recommend studying just in case.
Just in case. Better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so let's talk about how students should choose a college when they can't go visit these colleges.
Yes, one of the best ways to do it, first tip is to look online. Now we have the internet in such a robust way that you can have virtual tours. You can also contact schools as well. And then working with a college admissions consultant can help you understand the nuances of every single school so that you're able to make the right choice, because this is the next choice for the next 4 years of your life. And you want to make sure that you're finding the right fit for your next home.
For the students who obviously are probably home right now, if college starts, is it going to be different this fall? Will classes be different? We're going to have to sit separately, sort of social distance in the classroom?
Depending on how much the flattening of the curve happens currently, it does depend. Some schools have stated they may delay fall in terms of on-campus experiences. So students better be ready that school may not be on campus. It may be virtual. But colleges have not postponed their deadlines for students. Applications are still opening August 1st, which is not that far away. And students need to be ready and prepared over the next few weeks to get those essays together and create a compelling application. So we recommend to students right now, with the students that are working with us, they're already done with their essays, they're already ready for the next step. For parents that are watching, it's all about having a vision and continuing with that vision regardless of what's happening right now, because colleges are still looking for your children.
It's interesting to me to think about how their learning is changing, and are they getting the same experience? Obviously, it's not the same experience. Are they going to get enough out of the college experience because of all this? Like, what do you think about that?
Well, when you look at the average student, I mean, we're seeing students spend upwards of 6 to 8 hours on video. And so the new generation is very used to online learning already through YouTube and other things. So from that perspective, you know, I think the older generations do feel like everything should be in person. But the truth of the matter is a lot of students that are driven and hardworking can learn online as long as they have self-discipline. Is it exactly the same? No. But, you know, at College Shortcuts, our entire team is virtual. We're already ready to support these students. And we've seen over and over just the amount of busyness we've had over the last 6 weeks that parents are realizing the importance of getting outside help during this time, whether it's tutoring, test prep, or admissions, to supplement what is happening currently.
It's so fascinating to me. Can I get your phone number and call you later?
Well, we are offering a free discovery call for all families during this time to best support them, because we do know this is a challenging time.
Yeah.
I grew up during 9/11 in high school, so I know what it deeply feels like to be a teenager. And so I'm working 7 days a week to make sure that these children, our next generation, is taken care of in their educational goals and their dreams.
That's fantastic. So great to talk to you. Thanks for taking time with us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, more information right there. CollegeShortcuts.com. You see they're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram with the following social media accounts right there. Thanks for joining us once again. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
From the station that's working for you, you're watching Fox 4 News.
Colleges and universities have not been immune to the coronavirus pandemic. While they are closed and using distance learning for current students, future students still look to apply.
A number of schools say that words, not numbers, could actually determine your fate in the admissions process. Now, Fox 4's Jonathan McCall is live at UMKC with the changes that could be on the way and why high school juniors should pay close attention.
Yeah, this is definitely their warning, John and Lauren. You know what? Officials say that because so many 11th grade students have been forced to leave their classrooms because of the coronavirus pandemic, it won't be fairly easy. It won't be easy for them to fairly assess their grades or their test scores. So that's why experts say admissions counselors will now be looking at student stories instead of their stats. Getting into college is a numbers game.
But there is definitely a 180 turn going on.
You have to factor in the number of applications, open spots, GPAs, SATs, and ACTs that typically determine your fate. But it could be a new set of numbers that decide if you're in or out.
In a 650-word essay is going to be way more powerful than a perfect SAT score or a perfect GPA.
Neha Gupta is with College Shortcuts. It's a program that helps students navigate the admissions process.
A lot of the colleges know that there's not going to be a standardized way after COVID-19 on how the 11th grade grades are going to all pan out.
She says with the coronavirus crisis, closing classrooms, canceling tests, and forcing students to sit at home, she says that traditional numbers for admissions would be skewed. That's why for the first time ever, she says more colleges will be focused on student stories instead of their stats.
That they're going to have to look at the human aspect, meaning, the values, the character, why they're interested in it, the passion, how that child is going to be a fit. And that's all going to be boiled down to a 650-word essay.
With admissions deadlines for next school year just months away, she says juniors right now should be using this time to separate themselves from the pack.
And those that take this time as an opportunity to do the hard work, they're going to pass with flying colors and get into the college of their dreams.
Gupta says that colleges won't be too rigid to some of the challenges that students face because of the pandemic, but deadlines, she says, won't be pushed back. She calls the changes long overdue.
I think this is going to be a long-term change. I think COVID-19 is creating a long-term change in a lot of industries and fields.
All right, so Gupta says that if you do have an opportunity to take an ACT or SAT test, you should do so. Make sure that just to give yourself another chance on boosting your chances of getting in. But she says because of the pandemic, a number of those testing dates have been canceled. We're live tonight outside of UMKC. I'm Jonathan McCall, Fox 4 News.
Universities and colleges may have closed campuses because of the pandemic, but they still want to recruit those students. Seniors will need to meet deadlines despite the major changes that have unfolded, making their decisions either May 1st or June 1st. Schools will continue with their August 1st applications for juniors. Neha Gupta, who started College Shortcuts, says there are still big expectations for students who want to go on to college.
I would tell students to focus on, specifically for the 11th graders turning into 12th graders, I would tell them, look, applications are opening August 1st. The essays are not changing. They've been out since last year and February. Get started on the work. The second thing I would say is for any middle schooler or early high schooler, find activities online and really try to showcase what it is that you're passionate about. We're living in a world where you have access to so many things, or you can create your own projects.
Now, she thinks the biggest shift will be fewer international students coming back to the United States to campus, so there will be larger acceptance rates, in her opinion, but that doesn't mean it'll be easier to get in.
Well, it may seem like a distant reality, but some families are starting to think about life after the coronavirus. Some students are wondering what their college experience will look like this fall, or if they'll be able to return to campus at all. The coronavirus could end up costing colleges and universities billions of dollars in lost revenue. And Nicole D'Antonio joining us live now with how this could affect the next school year. Nicole.
Well, Annie, one big concern is how this could impact enrollment this upcoming school year. Another question a lot of people have, could we see more colleges and universities permanently close their doors? Well, the group American Council on Education says they do expect to see a 15% drop in enrollment. And we spoke with an expert, the founder of the group College Shortcuts, who says this number really isn't surprising.
If you look at the fact that, there's a large percentage of students that come internationally to school here, assuming that many of those kids won't be coming back, that is where a lot of that statistic is coming from.
Neha Gupta started this group College Shortcuts more than 15 years ago. Now, she told me we could also see more students wanting to stay closer to home or attending a less expensive school next year. But she says there's still a large number of students who will still be striving to attend their dream school. She says it's a big reason that their phone offices have been ringing nonstop 7 days a week. And the number one question that they actually get asked is how to stand out on an application, especially now that so many schools are no longer requiring SAT testing.
We've had the entire UC system that takes upwards of 200,000 students state they're going test optional this year. That's a very big deal. There's a complete overhaul happening, and I'm actually very happy about it because I do believe that students should be graded on who they are, the qualities of who they are, what character they have, what type of person they are, versus just a test they took for 3 hours on a Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm. So I love this advice. She says that the story, the personal story, is so much more important than the statistic this year. And that's because of more schools putting a greater emphasis on the college essay, right? So she says it's important to use this time to really focus on what you're deeply passionate about.
It is all about taking this time to figure out what you're going to do to stand out in the time that you have right now. We're living in a time where we have internet, we have a phone that is unbelievable, that is able to, connect you with so many people. You can make a difference.
So one more thing to think about here. She said for these college seniors, a lot of them are actually having to choose a school without actually being able to physically attend the campus to go on a college campus tour. So a lot of people being impacted by this, but guys, just a lot of things to think about. And she said the most important thing is just to get a head start on all of this. Guys.
From KGW News, this is a special edition Coronavirus Q&A.
George Fox University in Newburgh announced today that they plan to resume in-person classes in the fall. The University of Oregon has similar plans and will work with people to keep their distance by altering class schedules and offering more online options. We asked Neha Gupta, the founder of College Shortcuts, what should students and parents do right now if they're applying for college in the fall?
One of the big tips that I have for students and parents right now is the fact that this is going to be one of the hardest admission process for parents and students this year, and to realize that some of the things they need to look at are for the following. First, they really need to understand and look at every different school and what they're looking for. The second thing we always recommend is getting outside help during this time. Most students would have relied on a guidance counselor or being able to visit schools. So getting a consultant to help you through this process can make all the difference. And then the third part is to realize that this year it's not going to be about your stats, it's going to be about your story. So most students think that their GPA or SAT score is what they were going to rely upon, but this year it's going to be how you craft your unique angle. What is it that you have that's going to make you stand out with your essays and your resume?
From KTVU Fox 2 News, this is Mornings on 2.
Well, high school seniors are likely feeling two things right now. Completely ripped off because the tail end of their final semester in high school has been hijacked by the coronavirus. No sports, no prom, even graduation ceremonies likely washed away. On the flip side, though, senioritis has sunk in 2 months early. But what about college plans? Many have been accepted to universities already, but some are still waiting to hear the word, and that adds yet another layer of stress in an already stressed out world. I spoke to the CEO of College Shortcuts, an online company that preps students to get into top colleges, and she says, stay focused and remember, you're not alone.
The way that schools are going to be, universities are going to be looking at these specific quarter grades is with a grain of salt.
And I'll tell you why. Let's say you have a student, because we work with a lot of students in this area. They go to competitive schools. Y'all's education system is unbelievable. The kinds of classes they're in, the competitiveness, it's part of the most competitive area of the country. So they know when they look at the kid's transcript, okay, this is going to be someone who can handle our academic rigor, So they're not going to judge the student on a quarter. They're going to look at the student's work from 9th through 11th grade from an academic perspective, but they're also going to look and say, hey, you had a month and a half, 2 months of free time. What did you do with that time? Did you just sit around on TikTok all day? Because we've got kids, doing fundraisers. We had students immediately start learning to sew and make masks. We had students that started a Facebook page. They paid for elderly people's groceries and delivered it to them. And these are 17-year-olds, so you can be passionate, driven, do well in school, but who you are and how you do things during this time and what your activities are to showcase what your passion is, that's what's going to help you actually get in.
Before we close, just another message to the 18-year-old, 17-year-old seniors that are about to embark on their life in college. What do you want to say to them?
I want to say to you guys, look, life is going to throw you a lot of curveballs. When I was in high school, 9/11 happened, and I know exactly what it feels like to be at your age and in a large crisis across this country. And I want to let you know you're going to get through this. I've gotten through this, and everyone has gotten through a crisis. But it's in time of crisis that shapes who you truly are. I urge you to use this time to reflect on what your vision is in life, to look at what future you want to develop, look at the passions that you have and the dreams you have and what you want to do, and continue to make those dreams bigger and bigger, because this is a time of pause and reflection. And no matter what happens, all of us are going to support you no matter what.
As for the parents out there of the kids, Neha has a couple of tips for you too. Have a plan and a routine and stick to it during the next month with your kids, and know the college deadlines too, because they aren't waiting for anyone. And if you've got a junior in the household, August 1st, applications open. Apply early, hire a coach if you need to. And when you write that statement of purpose for your college, have a compelling story. Some useful tips to navigate the already complicated application process.
Live from Charlotte, this is WBTV News, on your side.
And we're on your side tonight thinking about those who are trying to plan the next step in their life. This is the time of year when a lot of high school seniors are making college choices, while those a little younger are starting to get ready for the application process. Kind of tough to do some of these things when testing is being canceled and campuses are closed. We have some advice for you tonight from academic expert Neha Gupta, who is the founder of College Shortcuts. And I started our conversation by asking, what is her biggest concern for high schoolers right now?
My biggest concern for the high school seniors is that they're having to make a decision, but yet they haven't been able to visit the college. So many students are trying to apply to college as well for the 11th graders, and they aren't able to do their visits either. So there's a lack of being able to visit campuses and really get a sense of the university.
We're also seeing some universities make some changes when it comes to the standardized testing.
Yes, we've already seen a lot of schools are canceling and saying test optional for the SAT and ACT. Since the College Board has decided that they're not going to do any tests, they currently do have June as testing dates. So that means that juniors can still possibly take it, which means they should be still preparing if they do have that option. But otherwise, it also means that they're going to be looking at the essays and the resume and all the other parts of the application outside of just the scores.
How do you stay focused right now? Because you're at home, everything is just sort of, been thrown on its head right now.
I think one of the big things to note is that over a month and a half ago, these students still had a vision and a plan. Applications are still opening August 1st. And so it's all about creating a plan, printing out calendars, knowing when the deadlines are, and start working on your essays right now. We know that a lot of summer programs are canceled, so now is the time because all the essay prompts are going to stay the same. So staying ahead of the game and being proactive is going to be the most important thing.
You're not sitting in a classroom like you normally are, but you're at home and sort of having to self-guide, which on some level, to me, almost kind of prepares you for college, because that's what you're going to be dealing with once you get there, that you have to sort of do it on your own.
It's very true. I think, motivation, drive, time management skills, these are the things that students are going to learn. And it's something that I have been very passionate about. I love these types of things because I believe these types of skills are so powerful. And all of our nerds, as we call them at College Shortcuts, are helping these kids to learn these soft skills that can make all the difference, not just in college, but even in the future as well for these kids.
Neha Gupta is the founder of College Shortcuts. I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
Parents and caregivers of high school juniors and seniors are especially concerned about what's next for students with in-person college visits and college fairs halted by school closures stemming from COVID-19. I recently spoke from the comfort of my own living room with the founder of College Shortcuts on what to do and what to keep in mind.
It's definitely a subject that's top of mind for so many. What's next when it comes to college, especially for our rising seniors heading in that direction, and even for juniors looking to start exploring campuses? We're talking with Neha Gupta. She's the founder of College Shortcuts. Neha, it's great to see you this morning.
Absolutely. Great to see you as well.
This is one of those conversations that really came to the surface pretty quickly. Schools in Virginia were closed and then closed for the full school year. So a lot of parents, guardians, and caregivers were left wondering what's next, especially for those rising students.
Yes, we're seeing across the nation a lot of schools are closing, and it is affecting a lot of students, especially in the high school grades, because they were expecting to finish off their year very strong and ensure, they knew everything for each subject, since so many finals are coming up. So a lot of students right now are confused and stressed and worried about what the next year holds. But what we found at College Shortcuts and with everyone that we're working with, that it's not just about focusing on what's happening from this week to next week. It's about looking at things from a long-term vision and planning. Most of these students still have the dream of going to college. They want that college experience, and we want that for them. And they want to study their passion. So we are still going full steam ahead with our students. They're working on their essays. They're getting their applications together, because applications are opening end of July and August 1st. So that's only in a few months. If you look at it, we're already in April.
And I think one of those things, it's not just a one-way conversation, right? Families, parents, students, all concerned about the next step with college. But I think colleges and universities and higher education is wondering, how do we connect with these students, and how are we having a barometer of maybe where they were? Some final grades weren't given. Maybe SATs or ACTs weren't taken.
Absolutely. One of the big issues that most parents are feeling, and students will feel through these next few months, is the fact that on average across the United States, it's 500 students to one guidance counselor at school. So right now, getting outside help is one of the best ways to ensure success for your child, because now with everything going virtual or schools closed, those counselors are no longer available.
So outside help, maybe in the form of College Shortcuts or other resources.
Absolutely. Getting outside help, because when you can't figure out which college to go to because you didn't visit, getting a consultant to walk you through, figure out exactly based on a myriad of factors of what is the right school for you, figuring out the right fit. This is going to be a big, big decision for families upcoming in the next few months when they haven't been able to make those decisions. And getting that outside help of people that do this day in and day out can be such service for these families.
Plenty of these campuses are now making arrangements or already had things in the works to allow students and families, or prospective students and families, to visit virtually.
Yes. So we're seeing, with the rise of technology, the ability to give tours virtually, we're seeing a huge influx of virtual tours. You have to also keep in mind that most recruiters cannot go to college fairs right now. They can't connect with the kids. So they're finding other ways. To me, I believe if students are prepared, they're getting outside help, they're able to be adaptable during this time and be able to live with what the opportunities are, these are the ones that are going to be the most successful. So the colleges are doing everything they can to try to make it as seamless as possible and reduce as much stress as possible. Earlier, you asked me specifically around what colleges are going to do around the way they admit students. Well, this year, a lot of schools and a lot of colleges are going to be going test optional. We already heard the UC system, North Carolina schools. We're going to see a big trickle of a lot of colleges due to the fact that the March, April, and May test dates for SAT and ACT were canceled. So because of that, we're going to see a large influx of students that are going to be able to get in based specifically on their essays that they present, their story, how they pitch themselves to the school, and more about their story versus their stats of their GPA and test scores.
It's interesting to know that, but that presents its own challenges too, because if you did have maybe resources that you were using before leading you up until this point, now it's a new playing field. How do you present yourself well if maybe essay wasn't your strongest suit?
Exactly. You know, we did a review over the last 5 years of 2,000 students and their writing, and we noticed there was an 86% decline in students' writing in the last 5 years. So all these students that thought they could rely on their counselor or maybe their English teacher, they're not going to have that as a resource. So we've been getting calls nonstop at College Shortcuts to book out our consultants and our editing team to help them and make sure they get that outside pair of eyes or former admissions officers that know what these colleges are looking for.
This is definitely the week that a lot of Virginia schools would have been on spring break. And this is historically the time that you would go out and visit campuses. So it is important to make that connection. When you suggest reaching out to resources, is it also important maybe to go ahead and reach out to some of those higher education institutions that you were thinking about or considering?
I always believe that building relationships are a great way to really stand out in the process. And I do feel if students are reaching out to schools, it makes a difference. We had a student recently reach out to multiple schools and get responses, and they were Ivy Leagues that were responding back to her, you know, and giving her great positive feedback. So I do believe these schools are looking for these students. The question is, how are the puzzle pieces going to fit together? And how are families going to be able to do this process in helping their child be able to pitch themselves well? And that's why we've expanded our team. We are doing everything we can to help as much as we can to these families nationwide.
What's the number one thing, in your opinion, for families to keep in mind?
The number one thing to keep in mind is to have a long-term vision and start writing out the timelines during this time. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day news. Even I do it myself. But the most important thing to do is print out some calendars. Look at when your kid is applying to college and understand those timelines aren't moving. Those colleges need your child in those spots. The question is, what is your student going to do to stand out in the essays and resume process of extracurriculars, activities, showing their passion, writing in a way that's really powerful? So the number one thing I would recommend is really understanding the power of getting outside help to help you figure out not only the right college, but also how to package your student in this process.
And getting all of those ducks in a row, so to speak, do give you a little bit of the opportunity to regain some control, and
Yes.
then it might not feel so overwhelming.
Yes, I think right now everyone is feeling a lot of out of control and uncertainty. And I think one of the things that's very helpful is setting up systems and routines. And the last part is having a coach by your side. You know, having someone virtually that can talk to you, that knows the next steps, can make all the difference in taking that stress and anxiety that's here for everyone and bringing it down and focusing in on what are the things that need to happen to be successful in this process. Many seniors this year that we've worked with are already getting all their acceptances, you know, so they're very excited about their upcoming year of getting into their dream schools. And we want to see that moving forward from generation to generation to come.
Well, Neha Gupta, founder of College Shortcuts, thanks so much for making time for us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You can learn more about Neha Gupta and the advice she's sharing. Visit collegeshortcuts.com.
This is Good Morning San Diego.
The spread of coronavirus continues to put things on hold. Here to tell us how students and parents can navigate through college admissions is Neha Gupta, CEO of collegeshortcuts.com. Neha, do I have that name right?
Yes, you do.
All right, top of the morning to you. Let's talk a little bit about the school year being put on hold. you know, the far-reaching impact as it has to seniors trying to get into college, what's the biggest obstacle that you're encountering right now?
The biggest obstacle we're encountering right now is that high schoolers that are in 11th grade, the juniors, had prepared for the SAT and ACT for the March, April, and May test dates, which have all been canceled. Many of them have no SAT or ACT score when it comes to applying college, and now they're very concerned with the SATs being canceled.
So fascinating. So it's not so much the seniors that are encountering the problems, it's the juniors, because that's when you're doing your SAT work.
Correct. Right now, many colleges are reassessing their admissions process for the first time in this manner, where they may be going test optional. We know the UC system has already decided they're going to go test optional, which means now students need to take the time and focus in on how they're going to make their application stand out with their resume, their extracurriculars, and their essays, because most schools will not be looking at the scores and GPA due to all the cancellations that have happened due to coronavirus.
That's fascinating. So let's expand on that. How do you increase your non-SAT work to make your application more attractive when school's not in session and the economy shut down? What can you do that can make you stand out amongst all the people who are trying to do the very same thing?
Absolutely. I would say one of the big things for students is to remember to have a clear vision of what you wanted to do before the coronavirus. That's number one. The second is really finding ways to explore your passion online. We're living in a world where we basically have a high-powered computer in our pockets with our iPhones and so forth. So there's so many ways to utilize the internet, study things, learn things, and still take what we've done offline but translate it online in today's world and continue to do these extracurricular activities, because it is important outside of just normal schoolwork to show these are the things I love doing, these are the interests that I have, and still to come off as a well-rounded student during this time. So from my perspective, it really is about translating the offline to online, and then also realizing that you're a human, and in the admissions process, you're now going to be looking at the essays to see your character, your values, who you are. And so students' writing and ability to stand out in their essays is going to be more crucial than ever in the history of admissions.
All right. So, Neha, before we let you go, where can people find you and your company?
Absolutely. They can find us at collegeshortcuts.com and also on Facebook. They'll learn about our latest free webinars that we're doing to serve the community as much as possible at facebook.com. And then you type in College Shortcuts for our page.
Hey, thanks for your insight. And I know it's turning a lot of people's worlds upside down, but you still have to do the work, and you still have to find a creative way to make your application stand out. We appreciate the tips.
Absolutely.
Let's bring in our next guest, Neha Gupta. She is actually running a college shortcut company that basically helps families navigate college applications and trying to help families make sure that their college application stands out, which is needed now more than ever. Neha, hello.
Can you hear us okay?
It looks like she's still coming in. She's still connecting there. But yeah, they need it now more than ever. So many schools they're not sure. A lot have moved online, but as the fall semester gets ready to if we gear up for that, some are saying that they might not start until spring, which is January. So, I mean, it's so many unknowns right now in terms of how college is going to go. And I think about all the high school seniors that just graduated. I'm sure many people didn't plan on a 6-month lag time, right?
Yeah. Neha, can you hear us okay? Still no audio. All right, we'll work on that. Technical difficulties this morning.
Oh, she said, I can't hear anyone. Okay. Try the bottom left-hand. Oh, she probably needs me to write that.
Yeah, she can't hear you say it.
Yeah.
We lost John. The internet is slow. Neha can't hear us.
Okay. Let's see. I know the person that usually types this is working to get John back in, but it's okay, guys. We're going to make it.
I know my niece and nephews. Can you hear us okay, Neha?
Yes, I can.
Oh,
yay.
wonderful. Okay, great. So this is such a trying time for folks right now. I mean, you got kids that are, juniors and seniors trying to find a college to go to. You got kids in college who are home and don't even know what their next year is going to be like. What kind of advice are you offering students right now?
Right now, I think one of the big things to realize is that, we are in unprecedented times and the admissions process is going through a complete overhaul. Just in the last week, Harvard and Cornell both stated they're going test optional for the first time in the history of admissions. So we're seeing that so many students that were going to rely on their scores for their GPA and their SAT are now going to need to look at other options and telling their story versus their stats through the essay.
Yeah, because I know a lot of students, this happens both ways. They're either a really good test taker and they score high on the test, which always helps bolster their image, I guess, to schools. Or you got kids who just are really good students, but they don't test well. So it kind of can help you out or hurt you.
I mean, I do feel like in a way, the virus has been quite an equalizer for everybody. And if you look at that and you overlay it into admissions, it means that students, you're right, that may not be best test takers, may have a very compelling story on why they want to go to that university. And they now have a shot against a student who may have had a perfect test score. So we're really seeing this equalization about really looking at the human in the application process. Now, if students do not have the right tools to write their essays or know exactly how to package themselves, that's going to be the biggest challenge in admissions this year.
So what do you think parents should be doing right now with their young people at home? Just because we are kind of in a waiting pattern. Some schools are saying, yeah, we'll start online. Others are saying maybe we'll push to January. Stuff is so fluid right now. So what can parents do in the meantime?
Well, one thing that's actually not fluid is the fact that admissions is still opening for the 11th graders that are going to be 12th graders. Admissions is still going on and applications are still opening in less than 12 weeks. So that is one thing that has not moved back. So we recommend to students that are still applying to college in the next school year to really look at the future and figure out what it is they want. I think the big thing is most of these juniors outside of the virus, they still had plans and dreams. It's not like your dreams get canceled.
Yeah.
So printing out calendars for your child can be really powerful right now to see, hey, we're in this week and in this week applications open. And, they say that, if you apply early, you can have a 5 to 15% increased chance of getting in just by applying early versus later. So planning out the essay prompts, which have not changed, having all of your essays written as soon as possible, getting your applications done in the next 2 to 3 months can make all the difference in admissions. So we're telling our families that work with us at College Shortcuts, most of our 11th graders have actually already finished their essays. There's not a lot going on this summer. Right. They're getting everything done so they don't have to stress about it.
Okay, so if you have that 11th grader at home, they should have that essay, at least draft one completed, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, our team is already, editing their essays. It's amazing to see the stories and the types of things students are writing about. I was telling a friend recently, a show just came out on Netflix called Never Have I Ever. And it's all about this South Asian girl who, is going through some hard times in high school. And I think there's so many shows around high school because this is a different time for us. It's a time for us to go from childhood to adulthood. And the applications, they talk about having a college consultant on the show, and she's not willing to get vulnerable or real about her story. And he made it very clear, even if you have the perfect grades, the perfect test score, if you don't have the right story, you look like everybody else. Mm-hmm. So even with the virus or not, it has always been proven that if you don't have the right unique angle to get in and express why you are going to be a great contributor to that school in some fashion, you're not getting in. So we recommend students to really do some deep reflection during this time to figure out what it is that's going to make them stand out in the process.
Mm-hmm. What about students who weren't quite sure about what school they wanted to go to and now they can't go visit?
Yeah, what's interesting about that is there are a lot of seniors right now in that boat, but what most seniors don't realize is that actually visiting the school has always been a luxury. There's many students that accept a school without even visiting it. So colleges, what they did was they had a May 1st decision date, but some moved to June 1st, just in case students could visit. But at this point, visiting an empty campus doesn't really make sense. So doing things like looking at college virtual tours online, asking the admissions office for more advice or information and making that decision can make all the difference in making that choice. But to remember that the schools are going to want your decision no matter what, because they're trying to figure out who's going to come to their university for the next year.
John Hanson, are joining us now for real, or are you still having audio troubles? That's my answer.
That's the answer.
Annalise is asking on Facebook, what if students think they should take a gap year, maybe go somewhere close to home, even though they've already accepted somewhere else?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting question. There's a lot of students that are looking to possibly do a gap year. I think one of the big things is to check if you can keep your status as deferred to a university so you don't have to reapply. I think that's a big question around that box. In terms of taking a gap year and then reapplying, if you do end up not being able to defer, you have to have a pretty compelling story again of what you did in that time. You can't just sit there and watch Netflix and video games and then think that in the next year you're going to get into that top school again. And the admissions rates are going to change. What mattered for you to get in this past year will not be equal the next time you apply based on everything that's happening.
So when you say compelling story, I think we need to give a little bit more detail or just spark some creativity or something, because what if you do come from, not everybody has like a beautiful sob story of how they have overcome all these obstacles in high school and here they are gonna do a good life in college. Some people did have a pretty stable life and they're trying to just get into college and still better themselves. So when you say compelling story, compel me. What does that mean?
Right. Great question. So, it depends. And I agree. There's a few different angles that happen. One can be that what you were talking about is that transformational essay. Yeah. Hardship, difficulty, confusion. How did you grow from it? What was the resilience? That's one aspect. And then there's some that have that awesome charmed life that may not have a hardship. But the truth is, a lot of students do struggle through different things, or they've done something that's absolutely impeccable or amazing or awesome. We had a student get accepted into, a top Ivy League that only accepts 50 students into their program. She did not have a hardship life, but she had done such incredible things with her time, with her privilege, with all the things that she could have done to showcase her passion. So when we talk about a unique angle and being compelling, first, it's about having a hook. They're reading through tens and thousands of essays. So having that hook right up front, having that vulnerable emotion, no matter what the story is, whether it's transformational or talking about your passions and why it truly matters. And one of the big things is that the biggest misconception in admissions is that students think they need to be well-rounded. The truth is they don't want a student who's good at everything. They want a student who's good at specific things, that has a specific angle that says, okay, this student's interested in medicine, engineering, computer science. Show me how they've done it in high school and how they're going to do that in college. That's a specific angle that they create. So from our perspective, it's about showing emotion, being vulnerable in your essay, and not just reading off your resume. The big mistakes that are going to happen this year is that students are either going to talk about the virus, which everyone's going to do, or they're not going to go, they're going to go from surface only on the essay versus going very deep into their story. We did a survey of over 5,000 kids, and we found that the decline in writing skills has been increased over the last 5 years because of things like social media or the inability to fully express themselves. So there's a lot of things that go into taking who you are and putting it into a 650-word essay. And another thing I always say is that most families, if you look at any best published author, their book was edited before they put it out there. Yeah. You have to have different eyes on that essay to ensure that you're on the right path or you've stated what you needed to in that topic.
What are you going to
Neha, it's Hanson. I'm jumping in now here for the first time. I wanted to, you mentioned about, having something like specific. Is it about identifying, like how do someone find this specific thing that they should mention that's going to set someone up, set someone ahead of someone else? Amazing. Is it about looking at what you've done in high school and like find those perfect like moments? Is it about the subject that you're most passionate about? What is that?
It's a combination of both of those things. That was amazing. So basically what happens is when you're looking at a student, and I think this is what's hard, is doing it yourself can be very challenging because you're having to look at yourself over the last 4 years, and sometimes before, depending on what activities you've done, look and see what are all the things that you've done. Also understand the market. You know, if everyone in your group or at your school or different people have done a specific sport, a specific extracurricular, a specific hospital volunteer, you probably don't want to talk about those things because everyone will be talking about that. So it's really about taking a moment and reflecting on your life experiences and how you can weave that into your story around, you know, who you are, what you stand for, and what you're going to do on that campus. You know, most colleges can really pick anyone at this point. You know, now that they're not looking at GPA as much or test scores, it's going to matter about how do you know how to express yourself? How do you present yourself? You know, when they do their interviews like this on video, are you going to be presenting well? Are you interesting? Are you compelling? Are you excited? These are all the things that right now our biggest concern in the admissions process is most high schoolers are at home. They're not at school. They're not interacting. Their counselors are busy. They don't have that time to do that one-on-one work with them. So we're seeing a huge issue around the fact that students aren't going to have the level of support they need during an admissions cycle that is completely unprecedented, where they're going to need to learn what I would call the soft skills or the human aspect of admissions, which to me, I'm actually very excited about this overhaul in admissions. Let's face it, your child taking a test on a Saturday for 3 hours is not the best representation of who they are or what success is. If they make an A in Bio 2 AP, does that tell me they're going to be successful? Not really. What's going to tell me you're successful is if you're driven, you have motivation, you're hungry, you hustle, and you make things happen. How do you show that? You show that in your writing, your interview, and your resume. And that to me is the true definition of success.
What do you tell a kid or like a family like who has a kid who did well in school, not exponentially well, but did well, bit of a wallflower, didn't do a lot of activities, but really wants to get into something like some niche, and that's why they want to go to a specific college where they don't feel like they stand out enough and they don't really have a story to tell, but maybe we'll develop one down the road. They're just not there yet. So how do you make a college interested in that kind of kid?
It's a good question.
It's a great question. Sometimes, you know, with students like that we work with, we sprinkle a little what I call unicorn dust on them. What we do is we talk with them, we figure out, you know, it doesn't always have to be about the activities you do. It can be about the experiences you've had. Let's say, you know, they went to an event at a hackathon and they're really interested in something related to technical fields and they went to a college event. We'll take that experience and we'll blow that up into a large essay that explains their feelings, why they're interested in it, how they want to, you know, really bloom and blossom in college around that subject. You can't say that a student in the last 4 years has not had some sort of moment in their life that can't be expanded in some way. It could be the inspiration from a teacher or a class. It could be a trip they took. You know, I remember taking a trip where I thought I was going to be a marine biologist, and you know, I was on the back of a boat and I was like, this is the life. And if I was actually interested in that over time, you know, we know teenagers change their mind a lot. You could actually write an entire essay about that experience of being in the waves on the ocean and how you were listening to this marine biologist and how you were just like this. In that moment, I knew this is what I wanted to do. So again, I think that, you know, having the right writing skills, the right editing, the right coach by your side can extract that out of a student to take what they've done, even if it's not that much, and make them stand out in the process.
I get from what you're saying is that all of this is so much more, because it is so much more competitive today. Having roles like an education coach or consultant, is that becoming more and more popular? Is that something that I need to look at if I'm a parent and I'm like, I don't, know where to start, or
yes,
my kid may need extra support?
Great question. I mean, right now, if you look at the country, on average, there's 500 students to one guidance counselor at school. And on average, they're spending 38 minutes per student. Think about this. A family is investing from $15,000 to $70,000 a year into this decision, and they're getting 38 minutes of guidance. You know, it's kind of like comparing it to having a wedding planner or a realtor, someone that understands and knows the information that you need to make sure you're finding the right fit. This is the first time your child's leaving their house. You know, we actually did a data report on our website at collegeshortcuts.com where we actually analyzed admissions over the last 30 years and forecasted the future. And we've seen that most parents apply to 1 to 3 schools On average, students are applying to 15 to 18 schools.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
a huge change because you can now apply online. You don't have to do anything in person. That's why this is not affected by the virus. You can apply on the Common App, hit the submit button to multiple schools, customize it for each school, but you want to be applying to more schools because of how competitive it is. Admissions rates have dropped upwards of 15 to 20% at some of these universities, even higher. So we're just seeing that the competition is higher, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. These schools are looking for the next generation that's going to lead us into our future, the next doctors, lawyers, engineers, psychologists, news anchors. They're looking for that excited child. And the only way to really express that is by having someone by your side who can go back and forth with you one-on-one. Most of the guidance counselors will not sit there and edit your essay word by word with you. We have not seen it. So on average, about 1 to 3 students are getting outside help in the admissions process. We are expecting, from what we've seen at College Shortcuts, my team is now 7 days a week. We're working Saturdays and Sundays because our phones are so busy, because parents know the guidance counselor is not going to be that available over the summer, and applications open in August. So more parents are looking for outside solutions. The second reason why also, they can't visit the school.
Yeah.
So having an educational consultant who's got the database, the data, the information, can sit down and get a sense, okay, what is this child like personality-wise? Which college is the right fit? That is now impossible with the virus for students to experience because college campuses are empty. So having a consultant by your side that understands the lay of the land can make such a difference, especially in this year and years to come in the admissions process.
Okay, I graduated college a while ago, and I'm stressing out about applying to college listening to this conversation a little bit. And I want to know is, how do we balance the idea of having these kids prepared and ready to go to college and the college they want to go to, but not freaking them out to the point that they're so stressed about it that they don't enjoy the part about being young?
Yeah.
Great question. So totally hear you on that. And I know that many people that applied to college before can't really fathom the amount of changes that have happened. I have some tips around how to do that. First, it really is about, when people are proactive and they plan ahead, you don't have stress and anxiety, right? Like, we're in May, if we're going to look at the admissions process coming up in the next few months, print out your calendars, know when the dates are for all the colleges, and know how much time you have. I actually find the college admissions process to be a lot of fun. The second tip I have, take some time to reflect on who you are as a person. Every one of you on this screen are so different, whether it's the way you look, who you are, your personality, the way you ask questions. Each one of you have a unique facet to you. Taking time to reflect on yourself is really powerful, and understanding what is it that you truly want. The third thing is create a vision. Regardless of the virus, all of us still have to move on. Having a positive experience, thinking about what you want in the future, and having a vision and starting to take those mini steps can make all the difference. And then the last part is, this is the journey from childhood being at home to leaving your house. And yes, there is stress, fear, anxiety around that, not just for the student, but for the parent. So getting someone by your side that can help you make this fun, really be able to be close to your age. All of my mentors are close to these students' age. They've been through the process. They give them timelines, they make it fun, and have a good time while doing it can make all the difference in the admissions process. And then realizing they're looking for you. If there's ever a time to stand out in admissions, it's right now. If you look at it, most colleges are going to have a 5 to possibly 18% open rate of students that are not coming back, or the international students who aren't able to come. So if there's any year to be the best version you can and really stand out and have the right help by your side, it's right now. So totally hear you about like the stress and anxiety, but there's a lot of opportunity as well that's happening right now in the admissions process.
I just can't wrap my head around the fact that applying for 15 colleges, because a lot of these colleges you have to pay to apply.
Yeah.
That's expensive.
Well, if you think about it, if you've got a student who's interested in Ivies or top 25 schools, these schools are getting, 30, 50, 60,000 applications to fill 2,000 to 3,000 spots. So you can't just apply to, we see every year where families will think they can apply to all these, what you call reach schools. And then I get the emails in January, February, where they're like, I should have signed up with you guys, built a balanced college list. My kid is now fully waitlisted everywhere or got in nowhere. What do I do? So that's why you have to apply to more schools. If you apply to all safety schools or targeted schools, and you just want to go nearby home, and you're just applying to a few schools, that's a different story. Then you don't have to apply to so many. But if you do have schools that are competitive and you're looking, for the student that, applied to Harvard and Princeton or the UPenn programs that are highly competitive, they've got to have other schools on there just in case. Yeah. But, with our students, a lot of students are interested in shooting for the stars. I truly believe this is the year to shoot for the stars, everybody, because there's a lot more spots available. Your SAT score is now not going into piles anymore, or your GPA is going to be taken with a grain of salt. I mean, this is the year to be able to really put your application out there if you can.
Someone on our Facebook page, our Facebook Live, shout out to everyone watching right now. And thank you for leaving your comments. They asked about gap years. Yeah. So we just saw one of the Obama girls do that a few years ago. And you mentioned that teenagers change their mind all the time. So how do you know when you should be pushing your kid to just get it done, you're going to college, and you should listen to what they're saying if they're like, I'm not ready?
I think it really depends situation by situation. Most people that take gap years, they usually travel the world, or they're taking on a job, or they're doing, those types of things. If students can't get that stuff lined up because of what's happening, you've got to really think about that. And it's different if you take a gap year versus go to a community college nearby. Okay. I think these are deep conversations you need to have with your child, and have them open and honestly, and let your child be able to talk and you listen.
Yeah.
I say that because a lot of times the listening skills aren't there. And so what's happening is they're just telling them what they think versus hearing the child. And it can be that you even set a timer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and you say, hey, I'm not going to say a word. I'd love to know what you think about what you want to do in the next few years. But if they know their child is someone who's addicted to video games, watches 10 or 12 hours of TV, is clearly not going to do anything worth of their time over that year, it can really hurt their child's chances in admissions when they're like, so what did you do this last year? And they're competing against a kid who had done amazing things when this student says, well, I watched video games, and I tried to apply for things and I didn't get it. So I just pretty much hung out you're not going to get into the schools that you thought you were. So take it with a very important reflection point with your child. And, again, boundaries need to be set. Parents are the parents, students are the students. Yes, the child has an inner knowing, but if you have the knowledge of understanding your child's personality and what you think they'll do in that year, you need to be very careful about how you make that decision.
Yeah, but that's a good answer. Like, what's their plan otherwise?
Right.
Got it. Yeah.
How do you set up kids properly for if they don't get into their dream college, that they can still have a successful life after that? Like, I guess it's about managing expectations going into the process.
I'll be very honest with you. It's not about the dream college. I'm someone that works with kids to get them into their dream school, and I do that a lot. But what I tell students is it's about the skills and who you are and what you do with what education you have.
Yes.
So it's not just about putting a name brand on there. You can get a name brand school and still be unemployed later. Mm-hmm. It's about who you are, what are the skills you have, and how you present yourself. A lot of times I tell families, what I do with your child over the time we work together is I teach them the soft skills that schools aren't teaching. Yes. I teach you how to create a resume that's proper. I teach you how to write effectively. I teach you how to interview. These are skills, if you think about that, to take what you've done and make you actually packaged, whether it's college, jobs, dating profiles, whatever it is in the future, right? You got to figure out how to present yourself. These soft skills matter. And so from my perspective, yes, shoot for the stars. I do agree still with going to your dream school, because when you do get into competitive schools, you have certain alumni networks, you have certain opportunities. There's a lot that you gain from going to a great college. But at the same time, don't set your child up for failure by saying only this school or else. Again, it's all about who you are and how you use and hustle the education that you get.
Yes.
Wow, that's good
if
information.
I had a kid, I would send them to you.
Yeah,
knows
Neha,
what she's
thank you
talking
so
about.
much for joining us. This has been great. We want to make sure we get all the information up there on the screen. CollegeShortcuts.com is the website. You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram as well. Neha, thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Yes,
Thank
and we're
you.
offering everyone, a free call with us just to talk about their situation. We are just so deeply moved by what's happening for all these families, so they can apply right there on the College Shortcuts website.
Perfect.
Wonderful.